Welcome to the Aging Well podcast, where we explore the science, stories, and strategies behind living a longer, healthier, and more purposeful life. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff Armstrong. My guest is Kristina Morros, a certified registered nurse anesthetist with more than 2 decades of clinical experience and a fierce advocate for personal responsibility and health. She's the founder and head coach of KristinaMorros.com, where she challenges high-performing individuals to take charge of their bodies and their lives. Kristina is also the author of the provocative, best-selling book, Get Healthy or Get Dead, a no-holds-barred manifesto that cuts through the wellness fluff and demands we take our health seriously before it's too late. And just in case you thought she wasn't already operating at peak intensity, she's also a competitive paddleboard racer, proving that strength, resilience, and athleticism don't fade with age. They just get more focused. Today, we'll talk about the philosophy behind her work, her book, and her path to optimal health, and what it means to age with power and purpose. This is a conversation about breaking cycles, owning our choices, and aging well. Kristina, welcome to the Aging Well podcast. You've been a CRNA for over 20 years. What did you see in your clinical experience that pushed you toward becoming a health coach and writing, and I love this title, Get Healthy or Get Dead?
Well, thanks for having me on your podcast, Jeff. I really appreciate it. My name is Kristina Morros. I am a nurse anesthetist, but I do not practice in the clinical setting anymore. So the pandemic kind of pushed me out into the wild of going out on my own and writing my book. So I have a book and a workbook called Get Healthy or Get Dead. They kind of go together. So the book kind of directs you through actual exercises you can work through to learn about being healthier and do certain things like mindfulness and activities and journaling and all those sorts of things. To keep the story kind of short, because it's a long rabbit hole discussion of how I ended up where I am. Basically, I left the United States to go to the Netherlands, and I practiced there for 10 years. And during the pandemic, they closed everything down and pushed us to the units to help with the COVID patients. And it was then that I noticed, and actually I noticed before, the healthcare system was conflicted with conflicts of interest and drug companies pushing certain things, protocols, insurance companies controlling how patients are cared for. But during the pandemic, it became very blatant that it was basically protocol to get people sick, for hospitals to make money. Patients were suffering, dying, or becoming chronically disabled from not getting appropriate treatment. And I personally had that experience when both my parents got sick, and I had to go rescue them from the hospital. And I became familiar with a nonprofit that had COVID treatment strategies using repurposed drugs and nutraceuticals. And so I joined forces with them, and we helped save literally millions of people's lives all over the globe. And so that unfortunately also became somewhat compromised, and I left. So it pushed me out into the wild to begin my own coaching practice, and it spurred the book being written to help lead people on how step-by-step to take control of their health and get better, not rely on systems and people telling you what to do, but actually doing the work yourself.
Kind of sounds like what we talk about here on the Aging Well podcast.
Yeah, I love your podcast, by the way. I've been listening to it all morning.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Speaking of aging well, how do you define aging well?
That's a really good question, because having aging parents who are still kind of addicted to listening to system medicine, it's about basically supporting your cells and preventing disease and regular screening and taking an active role into your health, which means making the correct decisions for your body and for your mind, body, and soul, and fueling your body correctly and keeping your body moving and balancing that with stress reduction. So, biohackers say aging is a disease. I tend to agree with that, but I don't necessarily like to say that because it is correctable. I mean, all diseases are correctable, but it's not. Disease is so associated with something that's bad that you're going to die from. And I believe that when you age gracefully, that you don't necessarily get old and broken, but you become more refined and you evolve. Like, I'm 50, so I'm in the best health of my life at this current state, which is saying a lot. I mean, being 20 or 30 and then being healthier when you're 50, that's, I guess, not typically aging, but that is aging.
Yeah. I mean, aging to me, it's just a number, really. It's how are we living those numbers? And I hate the idea of it being a disease.
Yeah.
Because a disease is something you either catch or it's something you need to avoid. And we can't avoid aging. I mean, we're going to get older. And it's just how are we going to go about that process of aging? And we'll dive into your paddleboarding and your activities and everything as we kind of progress through this. But your platform focuses on individuals who refuse to be broken, and I love that statement. What does that phrase mean to you, and how does it shape your coaching philosophy?
So we can either sit back and be fed information and trust everything we're being told, or we can receive the information, look at it ourselves, take the data in, and make our own decisions. So my coaching practice is coaching, but it's also in a sort of a sense of advocacy because my background is nursing. And so a lot of people they get lost in the system, or they're confused, or they're told so many different conflicting things. They don't know how to process information. So within my coaching practice, basically I look at whatever people are having issues with, and then I kind of investigate it as a scientific investigator and look at their data, look at their lifestyle, see what they could improve on. If there's labs or things we need to actually look at, then actually ordering those labs, helping them go through and educate them on what those results mean. And then if they have a managing provider, helping them communicate with that provider and helping them get the best targeted help for whatever the imbalance is. And then on the side of maybe having the practitioner involved, and I'm there as a resource to help the individual eat better, shop better, so go shopping at the store and buy better products, get some sort of movement in. It doesn't have to be paddleboarding or yoga. Those are my specialties, but helping someone figure out a way just to get movement started and keep with a routine. Stress reduction is a huge thing. I am a yoga teacher, so breath work, yoga, mindfulness, gratitude, intention setting, and manifesting what you want is part of evolving into a healthier person and having a balanced being and spiritual connectedness with the greater purpose. And sleep is such an important thing. And I was listening to you talk about that today with another one of your guests, and sleep hygiene is really important. I agree with you on that point. And when people don't really prioritize sleep and allowing that time to rest, they're really doing their body a disservice and running it down and stressing out the cells. And we want to keep the cells in a healthy state. That's what keeps us aging gracefully. So
you've told us kind of your definition of getting well, or aging well rather. How do you define getting healthy? And you've kind of alluded that to a little bit there, but how is this different from the mainstream health narratives that people are often bombarded with?
So I think people are bombarded with get help. I'm not trying to say get. I want to say get rich quick, but that's not what I mean. Get healthy quick, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like Ozempic, all those pills, or getting on some diet fad. And I'm not saying all diets are bad. Certain eating regimens have a certain place in certain situations. Like I just want to take carnivore diet for just an example. It has its place. A lot of people do it. It probably shouldn't be something you should do long term because your body does need fiber and nutrients from a balanced diet with vegetables and fruits. But when people are just kind of fed those types of things and don't actually research on what the appropriate strategy is, and they get lost, and then they often are disappointed by not achieving results. So it's really a matter of discipline, learning the discipline to, it's not a diet or a quick fix. It's actually a lifestyle change, a new adoption of a new way of living. And that's kind of my motto with Get Healthy, Get Dead. And that's what I've done with myself actually as well. My journey started with intermittent fasting, and I'm not saying everyone should do intermittent fasting, but it worked great wonders for me and for my muscle tone and my body composition and my metabolic, my metabolism is not very flexible because of that. And those are just a few things that help people change what needs to be changed.
Yeah, I think we tend to confuse tools with, real fixes, and solutions. And we need to understand that nothing is perfect and everybody has their own individual needs, and things are going to work differently for one person than they will for another person. And more often than not, every diet is good until it's not.
Yeah,
It's like,
it doesn't
they all
fit
work
every
for a while.
person. Yeah, you're right. Like it's individualized treatment or care. People have to kind of explore what works for them and what doesn't, and then go with the solution that best fits them as an individual.
So the title of your book is Bold and Unapologetic. What inspired it, and how has the public responded to it?
Well, it's just been released since June 1st, so it's new. So still raising awareness for the book.
Okay.
But the title is kind of my personality. I mean, I'm pretty straightforward, and I like to tell people like it is. And some people may not swallow that well, and others may react to it well. But basically, sometimes we need someone to come in and just tell you the truth and be supportive, but not coddle. And I'm not really a coddler. I'll just basically say, hey, this is probably what you need to be doing. I can help show you how to do it. It's your choice whether to follow those instructions or not, because ultimately it's your body and your choice what you do to it. But these are the things and the strategies you could use to try to help change your body and your mind and your activities and your outcome in the future. So the book is kind of explaining also the background of why medicine and wellness are corrupted, how much money is being made off of both of those businesses, and how the public is basically duped into being led on one path or the other if you're not careful and not doing your own research. So this book lays out the foundation for that information in case you're not awake and aware of what's going on, and then just kind of then takes your hand and walks you through the different points of being healthy. And the first part starts with sleep, actually, and just kind of moves through eating and movement and mindfulness, and ends on getting your finances in order. Granted, I'm not a financial planner, but when you are overwhelmed and you don't have a plan for the different things in life that might make you feel like you're drowning, when you get all those things going on the right track, it starts evolving into making you feel less overwhelmed, so you have a more positive path to follow. So
do you see the irony in an anesthetist waking us up?
Well, yeah, and I can only speak for myself, because I have to admit that my colleagues in the medical field are not quite as aware of what's going on as I am. And that's why I am not practicing anesthesia, because I cannot, I can function and do anesthesia. I'm actually very good at it, but I have a moral and ethical conflict when I walk into a hospital and I see people on Ozempic or have other inflammation issues that are not being addressed, and then anesthesia is prescribed and there's no consideration taken into what nutraceuticals they may be on, or if they have a methylation problem, or other nutraceuticals that might interfere with certain metabolism pathways that might cause toxicity. Like, there's just so many things that I found myself sitting there watching what was going on and being like, I can't do this anymore. So maybe it's odd. My path is different from other nurse anesthetists. I've kind of jumped into functional medicine, and through the COVID pandemic, I learned about infectious disease, and specifically spike protein related inflammation. And that took me down this path of evolving my knowledge base outside of anesthesia. So, and then when you combine that with an education in yoga, it gives kind of a different perspective than a typical nurse anesthetist.
So in the book, you talk about personal responsibility and urgency. Why do you think those two elements are so often missed in today's wellness conversations?
Why urgency is missed? Was that
personal responsibility and urgency?
So I think that if we don't address an issue, and I'm just going to take inflammation, let's just take mast cell activation. So someone who has issues with histamine, allergies, can also trigger autoimmune and other things, even cancer. When you don't actually address why you're having seasonal allergies or why you're reacting to a certain food, or maybe you're having gut issues with something, and you kind of let that continue, the inflammation gets worse. So it's really important to find out the why behind the imbalance, address the why, try to correct the why. And it's important to do that now than wait for later when the problem snowballs into something that's harder to correct. And I'm not saying that there will be a point that you can't correct it, but when you have a malignant tumor and it's growing faster than you can shrink it, you're to a point where unfortunately you won't be able to fix the problem. So it's better to work through a vision of prevention, almost like changing the oil in your car. That's the way I look at your health, checking your regular health parameters. And it's urgent in this point in time because the system is getting even more out of control. The economy's worse. Things are getting more expensive. Insurance is almost unaffordable. Families can't pay hospital bills. People are having to work 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. It's important to try to do what you can on your own, because there are lots of free things to start with to make steps in the right direction. It doesn't always mean spending thousands of dollars on finding a solution. It's as simple as drinking enough water and making sure you go to bed on time and you wake up at the same time, and you have a conducive sleep environment, and you make movement a priority, and you block that time in your schedule, and you communicate with your loved ones that you need that time for yourself. So you create your boundaries that you need for your own health. Because if we burn ourselves out, then if you're a mom, for instance, if you burn yourself out, you can't really be the best mom you can, because you can't be there for your kids and for your husband, for the rest of your family. So it's vitally important in this day and age that we, really become aware of how important health is and decide to take that step now to correct things.
It's amazing. We've kind of forgotten that old adage that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we need to go back to the old ways. And yes. Just the way, if you look at how our grandparents and our great-grandparents lived and looked at what they were eating and how they were, there were less cars and less commuting, of course. That wasn't, around, years and years ago. So the lifestyle is different than it is now, but I think it's important to prioritize the basics again and come back to correcting those historic practices.
Yeah, you look at the blue zones, the people that are living the best across the globe, they're living pretty simply. And they're not, you ask somebody that's 100 years old, what's your secret? They're not talking about, I have a great doctor who prescribes me the best medications and I have these 10 pills that I take. It's the things that they've done over the course of their life that have prevented the disease from affecting them. And you emphasize simplicity in your approach. So what are some of the core habits or principles you recommend in Get Healthy or Get Dead that listeners could begin to implement today?
So the first thing, the most important thing is setting boundaries. You have to set the boundaries to schedule and the time to give the different aspects the attention they need. So again, the first thing I would emphasize is looking at your sleep situation. If it's out of whack, that would be the first thing to consider, because that impacts your mental health and your feeling of anxiety, and when you don't get enough sleep, you can't think clearly, you have brain fog. That would be a huge priority, I would tell people. I think looking at your diet is a major, major, major one. If you look at the amount of people who are overweight around you, like I live in Florida, I'm at the beach all the time. I look at people walking around in swimsuits and see, the majority of people who are in shape and walking around the beach is pretty rare nowadays, which is kind of shocking, actually. And people think that they're eating healthy when in fact they're not. Eating seed oils, omega-6 products, eating fat-free, low-fat, cooking with sprays, not eating full fat, using cooking in lard and butter, and, going back to those basic things where you're not refining foods and where you're not taking things out to process them, making them seem healthy. Those things are very easy fixes. And learning about which foods have higher sugar content, which are processed quicker in the body, which allow for the swings in the blood sugar, which cause people to crave carbohydrates. I think that's a main thing to look at. Fasting is not for everyone, but I tell you what, it'll kick you into a good pattern of eating, because you will get over that initial trigger, which makes you hungry, and then you forget about eating, and then you start eating in a window, in like an eating window. You have your fasting window and your eating window, which the fasting window is actually, you sleep part of that window, so it doesn't really even feel like you're fasting. But even if you're not doing intermittent fasting, but if you're eating in kind of a timed hourly space on a daily basis, it'll get your body in a better circadian sync as well. It's really important, because those are the things that the stress will throw your hormones out of whack. That's another thing. People should have their hormones checked. There are lots of people walking around with thyroid issues and just hormonal imbalances, and that will cause you to retain weight or feel burned out or cause you to react in certain ways. So I think those, and hydration, of course, I have to mention that as well, because people are drinking sodas and energy drinks and, all these, I love coffee, don't get me wrong, but like coffee drinks and tea drinks with all the syrups and sugars in them, instead of prioritizing just good old fashioned, clean, filtered water. Like, it's just so basic, and it's so easy to do with carrying a water bottle around with you everywhere and drinking on a regular basis, to keep your body hydrated, especially in the summertime. I'm sure I'm missing some other things that are very basic, but those are the like the most urgent things that come to mind.
That really kind of underscores the 6 principles that we always bring up on, the 6 pillars that we always bring up on this podcast. So just get your body moving, maintain a healthy body composition, eat a healthy diet, reasonably healthy diet. Doesn't have to be a perfect diet. We say don't smoke, but fortunately fewer and fewer people are smoking nowadays, so that isn't as critical to underscore. What's that?
Let's don't substitute smoking for vaping. That's terrible for you. I just want to make a note of that, though, because people think, I vape now. It's like, no.
It's still bad. I underscore too that, people that smoke like pipes and cigars, they say, well, I don't smoke because I don't inhale. It's like, do you not breathe between those puffs? Because the air you're breathing has that smoke and all those chemicals and everything in it. You're giving yourself secondhand smoke if you're not inhaling it directly. If you're enjoying the Aging Well podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, or follow on your favorite platform so you will never miss an episode. And if you find our conversations helpful, please share the podcast with a friend, because aging is something we're all doing, and we're better at doing it together. And support our guests in this podcast financially by visiting the affiliate links in the episode description below, and use the links or codes provided for discounts on products we have vetted and feel comfortable recommending to our valued viewers and listeners. Thank you, and now back to the podcast. But so smoking, we underscored that is so bad, but the sleep and these purposeful social connections have really been the 2 pieces that we've been leaning into a lot more. Yeah. And to me, sleep is really, really, really critical, because if I exercise but I don't sleep well, I'm not getting full recovery from that exercise. Right. And if I don't sleep well, I can't exercise as effectively to get the best results. Yeah. And so as an exercise scientist, exercise physiologist, I kind of feel, a little bit awkward saying that, sleep is more important than the exercise piece. And it's slowly taking over to where it's like, okay, sleep first, top priority, exercise and diet kind of come next. And,
I agree with that, though, because you have to have the sleep in place to keep your circadian rhythm in balance, because, you have the play between melatonin and cortisol. And when those are out of whack, you're not getting your sleep. And that's going, like you're saying, if it will affect your physical activity and your performance and the improvements that you can receive from a regular physical regimen. So, and I love social connections, by the way. I was listening to you talk about that earlier, and I cannot agree with you more. And one thing that I like about you saying that is it kind of, I'd love to kind of talk about sports clubs and what, because I find a lot of times, where I live anyway, people like to go out to bars for social connections and drink. And I'm not saying alcohol is bad, but there's other ways to connect with people, having hobbies or being in sport groups, whether that's in a team sport or doing, for instance, what I do. I have to talk about my paddle boarding because, I'm obsessed with it. So, but I paddle every Thursday with a group of people, and we have a little race, and it's great because it's, you're with people who have common interests with you. It's a mix of men and women, and it's a good competition. It's not, nasty or anything, but it gives you a little reason to work harder when you're with other people to try to, beat them or not. You shouldn't come up with that mindset, but competition is always fun, a good, healthy competition. Good. And then afterwards we sit around and we chat and we catch up for the week, and we, have something to eat and have a beer or not, or whatever people want to drink. And personally speaking, I look forward to it. And from that, we've kind of spun off because we all don't live in the same places. We've spun off in our own areas, some other sort of like free clubs where you can get together and paddle. So we make appointments with each other to get up at 7:00 on a Saturday and go paddle 6 or 12 miles, a training paddle, or maybe it's a pleasure paddle where you just meet up and go paddle for a little while at the beach. But it's a great way to build a community and feel like you belong to something. And it's also a great healthy activity. And I can't stress enough when you speak about those social activities, how great it is to find like a sporting group to join.
And that's where we, underscore the purposeful part of it. When you talk about competition, there's two approaches to competition. There's that competition where it's just, I'm better than you, kind of the selfish kind of competition. But then there's the competition that drives us all to be better. And that's where the purposeful piece comes in. If we're being competitive just to put people down, to, elevate ourselves, that's not productive. That's not healthy. No. But if we're doing it so that we're all getting better, then competition is great. And the same with drinking alcohol. There's a big difference between going and drinking with friends at a bar than doing it in a more purposeful kind of setting, where you're having dinner together and you're having conversation and it's relaxing, or you're kind of celebrating a great competition on the paddle boarding. Mm-hmm. There's a subtle difference in there to where something healthy can become unhealthy if we do it inappropriately. Yeah,
it's all about, again, it's about balance. It's, and I do compete in bigger competitions. I competed in the International World Championship that was in Sarasota, Florida in November. But the reason I went there was to go meet other paddlers and have the experience and be at a really big race and meet all these international people. And I saw some of my Dutch friends that I hadn't seen in years because I used to live in the Netherlands. But, some people went in there with like, I've got to win and be on the podium and get first place. And I just went in there with just like, oh, I don't care. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. What are we doing now? To go pose for a picture for what? And I just kind of like blindly like fumbled through there, but I ended up performing quite well because I think it's because I wasn't hyper focused on winning, but more focused on having a good time and having the experience. And I think that's the fun thing about, paddle sports and sports in general. But I just think group sporting activities, group art activities, reading groups, those things are so productive and so supportive. There's a million other things, but, those are the things that I'm close to that I prefer. So, I really do like the fact that you bring in social connections into your podcast as an important factor in health.
We're working on it. I think we all need those social connections, and the more we promote it, the better.
Yeah.
So what were some of the most surprising things you discovered while writing your book, either in the research that you were doing or kind of even in personal reflection?
Well, the book was spawned out of the fact that it was spawned out of my journey. So I think the book, I wasn't really surprised writing the book. I was more surprised about how I arrived at the book and seeing how you're educated a certain way to believe a certain thing, and all of your education is structured a certain way. And so you leave school thinking you're doing the right thing when in actuality you're not getting the full picture. And another example I can bring about that is learning about nutrition, because in the medical and nursing schools, we don't get a really good nutrition course, and it's reflected when you come out. You have certain people who have roles within the hospital, like dietitians who come in and fill that gap. But when there's that connection and the breakdown between that role and the role for the person who's managing the patient, when they don't understand how diet can impact hormones, thyroid, immune system, wound recovery, all those things, like that's a real disservice to the patient. So going through this journey through the pandemic, when and already being half aware of the shortcomings of the medical field, and then being thrown into the hope of thinking that the medical freedom movement and the wellness industry was going to help reform the medical system, it was surprising to me to actually see the corruption in the wellness industry. And it's deep and it's dark, and it was almost like going through the pandemic all over again, like seeing people that you thought were on the good side and then finding out that they were really only in it for their own personal interest or for ego or for fame. And when you look into their histories and their careers and their new associations, you see these connections being made with the people you know that are not on the good side, and then seeing the connection between all of that and government and defense. It was quite shocking. And not that is all necessarily my book, but that journey is really what formed this book. And the reason why I wrote it is to allow people to have the tools in their hands to, when they're serious, because you can't really follow this book if you are not 100% committed to wanting to make your life better. And that's the same with coaching. If you're not in it 100%, then you're not going to make the change that you desire. Or maybe you really don't desire it. Maybe you aren't mentally, spiritually, and emotionally fully committed to doing the change, because it's hard. I mean, evolving is hard, and it's a constant practice. It's growth mindset. And when you're not quite there, then you may not be successful. But anyway, going back to the book, the spiritual aspect in the book is really important. And it's whatever your religion is, it doesn't matter, but it's more about having your connectedness to a greater purpose. And that really is important by setting aside the time, hopefully on a daily basis. It's whatever really fits in with who you are as a person, but you'll have a quicker connection, and I think a quicker evolution if you commit to it on a daily basis, doing breath work, doing mindfulness, practicing gratitude. Even when everything is falling apart, just stopping for a second, not focusing on that, but focusing on what you do have, really is the thing that will change and manifest what you want. And so I don't think I really answered your question, went off on a tangent, but I think my favorite part of the book, though, is the spirituality part of figuring that out for each individual, because that really is what changes people.
Yeah, and I think we tend to neglect that. I mean, again, being an exercise physiologist, I've had a long kind of spiritual connection for years, but I've always been focused on the physical, right? Taking that physiology and applying it to exercise. But the more I've kind of dived into doing this podcast, the more I've just kind of explored myself and grown over the course of my career, the more that spiritual connection piece has been so important. And it's going to be another shameless plug for my friend Jay. I don't know if you've heard any of the podcast episodes where we plug Jay, but
I heard you talking about him. Yes. Mm-hmm.
He's getting to the point now where I think he's going to want to start getting, some revenue for every time we say his name. But he's the one that pointed out to me that whenever I talk about what I call my well-centered fitness, I always label it as the spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social. It's always kind of been in that order. And part of it I know has been that, the spiritual has been a bit more of a priority. I feel like the spiritual and the physical are they dovetail together, and the more we explore them, the more they come together. But he was the one that kind of, were you intentional on that, the way you spell out spies, because it spells out spies? And I was like, I wasn't really intentional with it, but now that you say that, it makes it a little bit easier to just say spies. And so now every time we say it, we got to say, we got to mention Jay. But I do think it's one of those major missed concepts when it comes to overall wellness. We tend to focus on the physical and even the emotional piece a little bit more, maybe social, but we neglect the spiritual. And the spiritual doesn't have to be religion. It's again, as you said, it's something greater than self. And
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I want to say we have today, in today's society, with all the social media and all of the electronic communication and chat, texting, and emailing, and not actually having a conversation with someone in person or on the phone. On the phone is better than texting, but a conversation in person where you can actually see the person, exchange body language, and actually see a face and speak to another person. It's huge. And I think that's why, I guess that's another reason why I love paddling so much, and yoga as well, because both of those movements are mindful. They connect your body and your mind with your breath. they can be paddling has to be outside, but yoga can be anywhere. It's great outside, actually. It's one of my favorite places to practice. But like when you're out in the open and you're around nothing but water and nature and animals, and whether they're alligators and sharks and snakes, who cares? I don't care. They're there, and you just, you paddle around them and you see them and you bond with them. Who cares? It's really important to have those unplugged moments where you can really be with you and be with that, whether there's a group or not. Like sometimes it's really good just to go and be by yourself and clear your head and just be. And that's really what it's about. And when you reach that point where you are comfortable and just being, all this other stuff falls into place. The sleep falls into place because you're able to reduce your stress and your mind is calm because you know how to calm the mind and calm the nervous system. The eating becomes priority because you want to fuel the body with the things that are going to support the body, mind, and soul and your cells. Because when you eat right, you feel better, you have more energy, you feel healthier. The world just changes before your eyes. The movement, it feels good to move. It reduces stress. You release endorphins. You have to find what you connect with that makes you want to move, I just think that's why the spirituality takes a priority probably over the rest of the other things. And then the social connections, when you surround yourself with people who are in your vibe, you tend to evolve even higher, and you nurture and support one another than having someone around you that's talking you down or not being supportive of what you love. That's toxic. That's not supporting your being, your energetic being, So I think that's why I really like your podcast so much too, is because you like to focus on those things as well.
Yeah, I think they're essential. And it doesn't mean that me or my co-host, we have these all down perfectly. And just like, you writing your book, I'm sure you're not perfect in the get healthy or get dead piece, but, we're all working toward what I call that kind of asymptote of perfection, that, we're getting our spiritual, our physical, emotional, intellectual, and social all lined up and working so that they feed each other and they just make us better each day. And we're just growing toward becoming a better species of human being.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm definitely not perfect. Like I am. I didn't get enough sleep last night. I know I didn't get enough sleep last night. I drove down to Stewart to go pick up my new paddleboard. So I didn't get a lot of sleep. But some days I eat a hamburger and French fries. Like I feel like it. Sometimes I drink maybe one too many beers. A big deal. Like but then I balance it out by doing good things for the body and making appropriate choices. But I want people to also understand that it's not a strive to perfection, as you just said. Like you're going to have your ups and downs, and don't beat yourself up when you maybe don't make the right choice, but it's like the long game. It's not short wins, and more good days are better. You know what I mean? Like
right.
If you have a bad day in between the good days, it's not like, it doesn't mean that the whole process is ruined. It means that you had a little setback, and then you start seeing you have a trending of good days and good and good and good and good. And then you notice that change takes place, and you have to celebrate those little wins. And this book helps you do that, especially with the workbook. The workbook is super fun. I know I made it, but I really enjoy doing graphic design and guides. When I worked for that nonprofit I worked for, I did all the patient guides, and it's literally like an homage to being in elementary school, where you walk through movement bingo and journaling activities and cleaning out your refrigerator, and it's just normal stuff. It's not like asking you to throw all your clothes away or all your food away and go, you have to go shop at this one store. Because I'll tell you something, I shop at Aldi a lot, and nothing bad about Aldi, but you have to make your best choices you can afford, and it may not be perfect, and you may have to choose a food that might have some ingredients that aren't the best for you, but just make sure you balance it out by eating something fresh, and making sure you get enough water in your body. It's all about being realistic about the changes as well.
So what you're saying is that we don't have to go on the blueprint plan and spend several million dollars a year to get healthy?
No,
That doesn't
no,
make
of course not.
sense.
No, it makes no sense. You don't even need like a bio tracker. I mean, I have them. My friend Zara and I always joke about. She's like, they're collecting your data. I'm like, they might be. You're right, but I'm like, I gotta track my progress and my competitions. But you can also do that manually. You don't get with a pen and a paper, and you go buy a blood pressure cuff, and they're
Right.
not that expensive at the store, and a little pulse oximeter, and you can count your respirations and you can count your pulse. I mean, it might be a little bit more work. You can make a spreadsheet, but you don't have to go spend thousands of dollars on a Garmin watch or on an Oura ring. Like, you don't have to. I mean, it's your choice what you do, but
Yeah.
health does not have to be expensive at all. Like, it really comes down to personal choices and doing the right thing.
Even diet. I mean, you go to Aldi and you shop. I mean, you can go into all those cheap, colorful cereals and stuff like that to get for your breakfast, or I'm sure oatmeal is pretty healthy that you can buy there. Just plain old oatmeal.
I just
is
did a little
probably
thing on
what you-
oatmeal.
Oh, yeah?
From the Aldi, yeah, that's so funny. I think I just posted my YouTube channel because I was trying to do overnight oats, and I was trying, like, what's the difference between steel grain and rolled oats? I was like, well, I'm gonna go with the steel cut today and see how it shows up. And I mean, it's just, yeah, but you can basically choose. You can make your choices there. You need to read the labels, but
Right.
yeah, exactly. Oatmeal's okay, but you just need to not buy the processed stuff. Again, the steel cut are the best, but they're really chewy though, and they're not the best for overnight oats. I found out, but I ate them anyway.
I've discovered using the rice cooker for my steel cut oats.
Okay, hey,
Now
that's good.
I have trouble going back to the quick oats.
Yeah.
So I just put them on. Takes about 25 minutes, so I can go work out or do whatever I want to do my journaling, come back, and even if they sit a little longer, it doesn't get bad in there. And I've started I put hemp seed in there, flaxseed, ground flaxseed, and some chia seed. And so I'm getting some extra, healthier oils, getting my omega-3s, getting some good fiber in there. It is a sturdy meal. I mean, it keeps me full for hours.
I bet.
And it's really easy to cook, and
Yeah.
it's not hard.
Are
And
they
it's cheap.
chewy in the rice cooker? I'm curious.
They're chewy, but they're not, the texture of kind of the steel cut oats when you make them in a pan are a lot harder, I find. They don't get as soft. So it's a different kind of chewy. You have to chew it a little bit, but it's not a hard chewy. It's not a crunchy chewy. It's more of a soft, full texture to it. It's kind of more like eating more of a rice kind of texture to it.
Yeah, because I'm not historically an oatmeal eater. I'm an egg meat eater. Like, I eat every day. I eat my eggs and my meat. My guilty pleasure is sausage. Sorry, I love it, and it's got all sorts of stuff in it. But there you go. I drink my water and go to the gym and sweat it out and do all that stuff. But so that was a little food adventure for me. I like to document my grocery store trips for my my social media. I don't know if people like it. I think they do, but yeah, like reading labels is the most important thing, I think, when people go out. That's a good start, is to start reading your labels to get healthy. Just make sure you don't have something that has like 20 ingredients, and shop on the perimeter of the store. Don't go in the middle where all the crap is.
And probably if it takes you a few minutes to prepare the food, it's probably healthier for you.
Yeah.
If it's something you can just zap in a microwave or, eat fresh out of the package, it's probably not quite as good.
Yeah. Although microwaving broccoli is supposed to be better at releasing the nutrients. Now, I question whether or not in those microwave bags it's probably good, because I'm sure that those chemicals might be released into the broccoli. I'm not sure on that, but I would suspect that. But there are, oddly enough, some vegetables that are healthier microwaved. So
at least cooked, right?
Yes.
I mean, broccoli definitely, you get more out of it when it is cooked.
Yes,
or
for
at least
sure.
when you chew, it has to be, cut up, chewed, that kind of stuff, because it releases whatever the specific chemical is. And I'm drawing a blank on
I am too.
the exact. But yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right with it. I hadn't given much thought to heating up the broccoli in the bags, when you can just steam it. Because I had a guest on a while back who pointed out that, one of his doctor friends had pointed out to him that we consume about the equivalent to a credit card of plastic a month.
Yeah, I don't doubt
just
that.
in the natural foods we're eating. And so if something is cooked in plastic, there's a good chance we're getting some of those chemicals from the plastic.
Yeah.
You know, we're drinking water. You talked about water bottles. I mean, obviously a steel or glass water bottle is going to be much healthier for us than going with the plastic. And certainly not, I mean, the idea, whoever dreamt up the idea of bottling spring water and selling it to us, the cost is greater than the price of gasoline. I've always loved that. People complain about, they go to their convenience store to fill up their tank and then they go in and get a water bottle and they complain about how expensive gas is. It's like, how much did you just spend for that water bottle?
Yeah.
It's water.
Yeah.
And you're spending like $3 a gallon for it.
On that note, though, one very important fundamental for being healthy is making sure you're not drinking water with contaminants in it. So I talk about that in my book as well, about, filters, water filters, how hacks for, if you don't feel like spending money on a water filter, you can let your water sit out and then take off the top 2/3 and throw it away. I mean, I don't do that, but I mean, if when the world ends and our supply chains are cut and disturbed and we can't get our bottled water and our filters are broken, there's your solution. You can still be healthy. But
right.
But I mean, even those basic things, that it's because I mean, you can aggravate the thyroid and the hormones by drinking contaminated water and fluoride. Like, I don't know how your viewers feel about that, but some people have fluoride in their water supply, and that's can aggravate your thyroid and cause cancer. The dentists seem to be kind of unaware of that, which is surprising. You have to go in and ask for, or say, I don't want fluoride treatments, and please, if you're going to polish my teeth, don't use the polish with the fluoride in. They're like, what? Why? Like, because I don't want the fluoride. I have to call ahead next time and tell them to get the special non-fluoride tooth polisher in there. They don't know about oil pulling either, which is interesting, which I don't know if your viewers know about that as well, but it's like this Ayurvedic thing that you do where you put oil in your mouth and you swish it around, and then you spit it out and you brush your teeth. And I've been doing that, and my dentist's like, wow, you have healthy gums. I'm like, oil pulling.
To look into that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
We had a green dentist on one of our recent episodes, and she was bringing up all kind of different things that, are just some of the practices in dentistry and in medicine, that the issues that they can cause for us. And just having good dental hygiene could actually add 10 years to our lives.
You know that, like, Dr. Thomas Levy, I don't know if you're aware of him. He's like the world's expert on vitamin C. He's one of my favorite resources. He tracks cardiac disease to oral infections. And then, of course, like the amalgam fillings will also cause inflammation. But I thought that was fascinating. And another fact, which I love to talk about on my blog, which, by the way, I have a blog also on Substack called Get Healthy or Get Dead. I love talking about vitamin C, thanks to Dr. Thomas Levy. He has educated me on what high dose vitamin C is and what normal dose vitamin C should be. And we are all vitamin C deficient. So even those multivitamins that everyone takes, they don't have enough vitamin C in them. And for God's sakes, please don't get your vitamins from the CVS and the Walmart and the Walgreens, because you don't know how they're packaging them. You don't know what they're putting in them or what the capsules are made of. So for those of you who are interested in taking nutraceuticals, please make sure that you take them from a pharmaceutical grade nutraceutical company, and those are pretty. I mean, you just have to shop for reputable brands. There's plenty out there. I use Full Script with my practice, so I offer that service to my patients. They can get high grade nutraceuticals if they want them and need them in their routines. So, but yes, vitamin C is a big deal, and no one knows about it.
Right.
I mentioned that in my book too.
So let's see what else. I mean, I'm trying to think now where I was going to go with some of this, because we went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with all that.
Your line of questioning? Did I throw you off your line of questioning?
No, I just trying to think. We were going down all kind of in different avenues there, and I had another one in mind, and then you went to vitamin C, and that kind of threw me off a little bit. But, so I'm just going to kind of jump into kind of shifting gears a little bit, and I know you've been wanting to talk about this, so we got to bring it up while we still have some time, and that's, you are a competitive paddleboard racer, which again is impressive in its own right. I think most people, they think of paddleboarding, it's just kind of standing up on a board and gently paddling around in a lake or a pond or something like that. They don't think of it as a sport and the racing aspect of it. And you showed me your boat before we started recording, your new boat that you're picking up today. That is pretty impressive. I can see that, that is built for speed. You're not standing on that thing just being gently paddled down the river. But what keeps you motivated to compete, and how'd you get in the sport?
So I began in paddleboarding more than 10 years ago. And when I lived in the Netherlands, I had a paddleboarding business, which boomed during the pandemic because everything was locked down over there. And I also did water cleanups while I was there. I got the city I lived in, we started doing monthly volunteer projects and got a litter trap installed, which is also a proud project that I had from my past. But paddleboarding has actually been around for a while. It came from Hawaii. It was super big about 10, 15 years ago. And back then it was like there were a lot of races for money, for competition all over the world. And from that spawned the pleasure paddling, where you see all those inflatables on Amazon, for instance. And I feel like that the sport kind of missed their chance to really educate the public on the racing component of it, because it all just kind of went to the pleasure paddling, which is great. I'm not saying anything bad about it. Pleasure paddling is fantastic. But to movement, since, finding activities that you like to do to move, being outside, water sports, love water sports. This activity is a full body workout. I mean, you get fit paddling. If you watch paddleboarding, which I would love for your viewers to watch, just go to YouTube, put in sup racing or stand-up paddle racing and just look at these athletes. They are amazing athletes, and these people are way better than me. I compete, but they are like professional athletes, and the skill it requires to move the board quickly and have paddle technique and be able to do a quick turn or surf a wave in or be able to paddle in current or wind. It takes a lot, and there are ultra endurance paddle races. There's Chattajack in Tennessee. It's 32 miles. You have Sup 11 City, for example, in the Netherlands. It's 5 days of paddling, and it's 242 kilometers, I believe, or I could be wrong with that. But there's various links. There's even some that are 1,000 kilometers or 1,000 miles, and that's mostly kayaks, surf skis, and OC1s. But some paddleboarders do compete in those.
Wow.
And it's a great community to be in. It's very positive, but I wanted the viewers to know about it. I want them to know that it's another option to get out and move. And if they can look up in their local communities, paddle groups or paddle clubs, or look up races in their communities, you can get on paddleguru.com. That's where you find all the paddle races. I'm going to be competing in an ultra endurance race called Last Paddler Standing in December, and it is 48 hours nonstop. It's 150 miles, and you just keep going until you can't go anymore. And it's 48 laps. The 49th is the final, and you have to beat the race. So each lap is 3.33 miles. You have to get that completed in under an hour. You have an hour, but you want to finish in under an hour because you want break time to recover before you get back on the water again. And so I'm really excited about joining that race. Greg Wingo, who's in charge of that, he has races all over, some other endurance races, which are very interesting. But I just wanted people to know so they are aware of another form of movement. And you can follow me to find out more about the sport. I try to explain about paddles and boards and technique and clubs and activities in my blog. And the place where I got my board, Flying Fish Board Company, is out of Stuart, Florida. And they are great. They dominated the world championships this year. And so I just had to get one. And they're super light and they're very fast. And pretty much the team riders for this brand won almost all the events. So I just really wanted to talk about it and wanted people to know that there is more than just pleasure paddling out there.
So when you go out and paddle, and when you first kind of got into this, did you find yourself being competitive, whether with yourself or just against others? Or were you able to paddle and just kind of absorb your environment around you?
When I first started, I was just going out to be outside and be on the water. And I just became more aware of it because I started following this brand called Mistral. They were really big in the 80s with windsurfing. And I was living in the Netherlands at the time. So I was following the team riders who were Dutch, and I met them and went to some of their races and just became hooked on it. And went to training with them and then trained with Shannon Best, who had 38 paddleboard yoga in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. She actually taught me about paddle technique and also about sound therapy, which we haven't talked about yet. That's probably that thing you forgot about. Sound healing with singing bowls and tuning forks. So I kind of like transformed into a racer, but it wasn't an immediate thing. And my first race was in the Netherlands, the last day of the Sup 11 City. And it was pretty cool. It was through the dikes in the northern part of the Netherlands, and we ended up finishing in Leeuwarden, and it was super fun. Like, you saw cows and windmills and all sorts of stuff. It was great.
Yeah, so I got into kayaking probably more than 20 years ago, since before I got married. So about 20, 25 years ago. And I can't just go out and paddle and just, absorb the nature. I'm like paddling for a workout, paddling as hard as I can, get there as fast as I can. My wife is the opposite. She's got it, she's looking at the houses and the scenery and everything else. And so I'm constantly having to kind of slow down and wait for her. And I just can't get into that mindset of absorbing the nature around me. Sometimes I think that's bad. Sometimes I think it's good. I mean, I get a great workout when I paddle, but I don't get the best social, emotional, spiritual connection that I should.
Well, in our group that we just started in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida, we call it this Santa Rosa Beach Paddle Syndicate, I think is what we named it. We just started last week. But we're encouraging competitors who are training and pleasure paddlers to come out. So you get to meet people, and then you can choose if you want to do 6 or 12 miles or just do a pleasure paddle. Or maybe the pleasure paddlers want to try doing something longer, and then they're encouraged to push themselves a little bit more. But I have to say, though, even when I'm training, because I'm out there for speed too, I am totally taking in the surroundings. Like, I don't put in earbuds. Those are bad for your brain anyway. But I'm always like looking around at the birds and looking for dolphin and stingrays and, manatees, sharks, whatever, fishermen, who cares? Like, there's lots to look at. Or just even, we were out paddling last week and we got caught in 3 storms. It just came out of nowhere. We're in Florida, it happens. And it was even interesting watching. You can feel the front hit your body, which is an interesting mindful moment. And then watching the front move in and hit the water. It hit one small portion of water before it spread all around. I was like, is that rain or are those fish? And I was talking to my friend Don, I'm like, what is that? He's like, are those fish? And then like all of a sudden the bottom drops down. I'm like, well, it's rain. So we had to paddle and hurry up and finish because there was lightning coming. But I have to say that I'm still connected with my surroundings when I'm out there. I think that might be one of the reasons why I perform so well, is because I'm totally engaged. My breath is engaged. My mind is engaged. My body's reading all of the temperature and pressure and the movement on the board. So it's basically computing in my brain the movements I need to take to go faster. So, but even if someone's not on that level, it doesn't matter. Just get out and meet people, and even if you don't want to do it, that's fine. It's not that you have to, but it's just another thing to try. And also Flying Fish, they make, they don't just make race boards. They make all sorts of boards. They make touring boards and surf style boards and surf sups and foil boards. They make all sorts of stuff. So, water sports, so there's so many options out there, and it's really a great way to connect with nature.
Yeah. And I'd have to say, I don't totally disconnect when I go out there, but I disconnect a little bit. But, talking about, your rain story, there was a time, I'm still embarrassed, I can't remember the name of the town where my mother-in-law lives. They're in Florida, but we went out, kids stayed with her, and my wife and I went out paddling and kind of one of the inlets out that area. And we just kind of paused to break a little bit, and the water was relatively shallow and calm. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden it was like 4 depth charges went off around my boat. There's these huge mass of water just sprayed up. I felt my boat just kind of rise up and then go back down. And it occurred to me, I was on top of a stingray.
Oh, how cool.
And it just like splashed the water as it took off.
Yeah.
And
it's so fun though, because like you do have all these really fantastic experiences with the wildlife when you're out there. Like, people are so afraid of sharks too, and I mean, I guess you need to have you need to be aware, right? But they're not out there. They're not going to Jaws you to death. Like, everyone thinks, thank you, Jaws, for scaring the world and creating a fear mongering about sharks. But like, it's like alligators. They're out there. I was paddling last weekend and I could hear them growling. And on the sides, I'm just like, they're not bothering you. They're just like, they're scared. They're reacting, and they're not going to, maybe some might charge you if they're like in the spring when a mother has babies. the chance of you getting charged by an alligator might be higher than normal. But you ask a fisherman around here and they're like, yeah, there are alligators everywhere. And I like to catch them with my bare hands and play with them. Like, y'all are crazy. Like,
That is crazy.
y'all are crazy, but
I'm not sure that's aging well.
When you can wrestle an alligator, you're aging well.
Yeah. I just think of Happy Gilmore and Carl Weathers' character with the wooden hand because he had reached in to grab a golf ball out of the alligator's mouth.
I have to mention though about sound meditation.
Yes, let's talk about that.
Yeah, because I totally forgot. I got on a tangent with paddling. I got all excited about my new board today. It's like all that I'm thinking about. So, you know, for stress reduction, a big part of stress reduction is reducing vagal tone. And people find it challenging to sit down. Well, they think meditation is like sitting here and going om and sitting still and like whatever, doing that for hours and hours on end. But that's not what mindfulness and meditation is about. What it's about is finding a moment of stillness. It could be 3 minutes. It could be 5 minutes. It can be longer, whatever. You work your way up to it. And I learned when I was in my yoga teacher training. And basically some of the easiest things to begin are doing breath work, like box breathing, like where you inhale for a certain amount of time, hold your breath, exhale for a certain amount of time, you know, hold on the exhale. That's box breathing. You basically draw a box with your mental brain on your breath exercises. So some people do well with that, others don't. So there's a couple of things that I really like for people to try if they're open to it. And that one is Yoga Nidra. It's basically a guided meditation where you just lay down, you just listen to someone or a tape doing basically a body scan. It's in a certain order. It is always the same, and it goes from the hands to the legs and scans the body, and it offers visual pictures, and you're just supposed to let go and just listen and just follow the instructions. That's one thing that just anybody can do. You just have to set aside the time for it and just put on some headphones or earbuds and tell your family not to bother you while you're doing it, and just try and just relax and let go and do it. The other thing that I think is a great thing for a beginner to try is sound meditations. And there are recordings on the internet. I actually have some on my YouTube channel. There's some link to my workbook. So I talk about in the book. I have a linked workbook activity in the workbook, and it goes to the YouTube channel, which shows like the movements and the meditations and the breath work. But basically you can go sign up for one and go to a live one, and you just lie on the floor and someone plays either a crystal singing bowl or metal Tibetan bowls, or they may play a gong or chimes or drums or whatever, but it's like a rhythmic entrainment of frequency and vibration. And so when we have stress, our brains become very disorganized with the movements are not flowing and fluid. I'm losing the word to describe what that is right now, but basically the science behind it is that the external sounds and frequencies will capture that brainwave and make it all go and work together, and then help your mind relax. And you have things like binaural beats, and you have, if you believe in chakras and energy locks, you have some that are targeted for certain centers. So anybody can do it. All you have to do is have an open mind and just go lay down. The way someone might interpret it, they might find it very relaxing the first time. They might find it anxiety provoking the first time, and it kind of depends on the person. And every experience is different. So just because you have one experience one time does not mean you're going to have the same experience every time. It's also interesting doing it alone, privately with someone, and doing it in a group with people, because often you share energy when you're with more people, and when you're by yourself, it's just you and the person conducting the sound meditation. So I think it's a great thing for people to try. It'll definitely reduce your stress. There are studies proving that it does, just like breath work. And there are different modalities. You can also do sound healing with tuning forks, and you can either strike a fork and put it near someone. They'll hear the same like tones like you would hear with a singing bowl, or you can use them and put them on points of the body and use it like acupuncture. So you can actually create a vibration in the body for, say, a sore muscle or a joint injury or bone repair. When I had foot surgery, I would take a tuning fork and put it on my hammer toe incision, and I was doing some other things as well and taking vitamin C, but my healing process was accelerated. And I do contribute part of that to the fact that I was putting a tuning fork on my wound 3 times a day. So it's just something for people to consider. There's lots of different alternative healing modalities people can try, not only sound therapy, but there are other things like near infrared light. Like, I love that. I do it every day, twice a day. I have a lamp this big, and it's actually in my bedroom traveling with me. I put it on this morning when I got up and did that, and I do it before I go to sleep. Helps me relax. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy is a great adjunctive therapy for very, very, very many different diseases, not just for wound healing. Sauna is another one. Ice baths. There are so many things people can do. And I just want people to understand that one thing that works for someone may not work for you. It's just kind of a trial and error thing. But if you are open to something and realize that it won't harm you and it may help, you may actually find something that might really put you into an accelerated healing phase. And it's great when you don't have to use medication or rely on other things that may not necessarily be healthy for you to help heal you.
And these are all things that don't require any movement, and we're all capable of laying down.
Yeah.
And if somebody says, well, I don't have the time, think about how much time you spend in scrolling on your phone. If you spend just a fraction of that time doing some kind of healing modality, it's going to give you benefits.
Yeah. I mean, the near infrared light, literally you can lay in your bed, and like, I like to journal. Like, I'm like you, I like to journal once a day. That's how I dump all my stuff. And that's also in my my sleep chapter is about journaling before you go to sleep. I turn the light on and I journal, and I might check email before I go to bed. You're not supposed to do that, but I do it. I still sleep. I get my sleep in, and all my sleep parameters are good. But it's better to do that than sit and watch reality TV or some series. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things, but you do have time for it. Just like you were saying, you really do. It's just a matter of reprogramming your lifestyle habits, and that's all it is. It's just reprogramming.
Okay, so how do you train today, not just for racing, but for life? And I guess the question I'm asking is a question we ask all our guests. What are you doing to age well?
I love that question. I was waiting for that question to come. Well, okay, so I'm going to go back to sleep again. I make sure, I try to make sure I have enough sleep. Like I said, today I did not, but I try to get to bed at 10 o'clock, and that's for me and my rhythm, and try to get up around 6. Everyone's rhythm is different. I get up and drink my water. I have my coffee. I fast. I do intermittent fasting daily. It really helps. I eat breakfast around 11 or 12. I supplement. Like, I have a healthy diet, but there are supplements I take. Like, I take methylene blue, and a lot of people are like, oh gosh, that's terrible for you. I'm like, no, it's not. They're trying to scare you about that too. I take that. I love berberine. Berberine is a great supplement for biohacking and aging well. It's also anti-cancer, and it supports the heart. I take fish oil. I take enough vitamin C. I take probably like 4,000 milligrams a day. I make sure my vitamin D is up to par. I make sure I get my movement in, and I make sure I take breaks. So if I have a heavy training day one day, I'm not going to the gym the next day. Now, I make sure I get up and move, but it's like I'm not sitting in front of the computer all day. But I do make sure I don't go train hard every day. You can injure yourself that way. I do my daily yoga and mindfulness. I start off every day with that. The first thing when I get up and do yoga. It's like 10 minutes. I do my gratitude, my intention setting, and do my breath work. It's literally 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Like, that's all I'm doing. And I make sure I get outside and get some sunlight. And I make sure that I get out in the evening and get the light as the sun sets. It helps set your circadian rhythm. I make sure that I'm not eating junk. Sometimes like I said, I have my French fries and my hamburgers, but like on a day-to-day basis, it's usually predominantly vegetables, low glycemic index fruits, and a lot of protein, because I'm an athlete and I need my protein. And when I'm training, I need a little bit of extra carbs and fat to get through the event. And I eat a lot of fat, like healthy fats. Like, I cook in lard, I cook in butter. I eat bacon. I eat red meat regularly. So, I have my social groups, and I have my family. I that's predominantly what I do. I mean, it's try to maintain balance in my life. Some days are better than others, and I try to do what drives my passion. And that might not necessarily be the thing that'll make me $1 million, but I think happiness is more important than being miserable and being not in balance. So I think those are my keys.
Those sound good. So where do most people sabotage their health journey, and how do you help them turn that around in your practice?
I think, unfortunately, a lot of people are programmed in diet food and low-fat food and fat-free. And the hardest thing is educating people about that fat is not bad and that they're actually, hurting their bodies when they don't eat full fat. So actually teaching people that fat is good and meat is good, and it is like a huge educational blocker for a lot of people. A lot of people are afraid. People I've been helping lately, I've been kind of trying to educate them on increasing their vitamin C and buying their brands from reputable pharmaceutical grade nutraceutical companies. They're like, oh yeah, but I have my vitamin C that I got from CVS. I need to use the bottle up. I'm like, it's your choice to do that. But I'm like, I just want you to realize that that's not the best vitamin C for your body, and it'd be better for you to switch if you can afford to do that. And, you're really serious about, being in charge. And they're afraid to take vitamin C, and offer them books to read about it, and they don't want to read them. So it's like, it's hard to get people to stop to consume the information. So it's like really a challenge to break things down in very impactful bite-sized pieces that they can read in 30 seconds. Or I'm a marketer too. So it's finding the right language, the right communication strategy for the right person to make them it click in their head. Because what the language you use for one person is not going to work for the other person. You have to relate it to something they can understand. So those are the hardest things, I think, is the education piece and deprogramming, and then showing what health actually is and what healthy foods are. And God, people are addicted to energy drinks and diet drinks. Yeah. It blows my mind. And that's a hard one, because people are like, I'm just tired all the time. I'm like, you're tired because your cortisol is probably depleted and you're not sleeping and you're eating processed foods. I'm like, what did you eat today? And then they're like, oh, well, I grabbed a saltine when I was running through the restaurant. I'm like, well, there's your problem right there. I'm like, did you eat a protein today by chance? They're like, no, I haven't had a chance to eat yet. I'm like, well, are we fasting, or are we just not stopping to nourish our bodies? Like, what are we doing here? It's like, people just, I don't know. It's hard to sometimes convince people that being healthy should be a priority before they end up with heart disease or cancer or an injury. Like, I know 2 people right now that have spinal inflammation. A disc is irritated because you have calcifications that are impinging the nerves. And, there's very simple things they could be doing to help heal those injuries, like increase their vitamin C, increase their stretching regimen, not putting stress on the joint, of course. There's certain things you should do, but looking at, are they doing the energy drink still, or are they eating like nutrient food, like those protein shakes and protein bars that have all those processed foods in? Like, what are they doing? But they're like not really open to entertaining that other information. So sometimes you just have to let people go on their path and let them do their journey, and eventually they may decide to try something new, or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll journey to a point of being broken. Maybe being broken is what's going to push them over the edge to become healthy.
All right, so last question here so we can wrap up. What, if you could offer one piece of advice to people, someone in their 50s or 60s or beyond who are feeling stuck, what would it be?
I would say take a deep breath. And, I have a wellness assessment in my workbook where you can break down the different areas of wellness. I would say take a quiz like that, whether or not you wanted to buy my book or not, and then figure out which one is the most out of balance, and just focus on one thing at a time. Like, if you focus on trying to correct one imbalance and get that one corrected, then you can move on to the next step. And just accept that it's like a long haul, and it's not going to be a quick fix. It takes dedication and motivation and the desire for change. And I swear it's worth it. I mean, if I'm an example of anything, I mean, I weighed 10 pounds heavier 2 years ago, and I'm in extremely good shape now. And I'm a completely changed person because of it. So it's possible. So just breathe and baby steps.
All right, baby steps. That's another one of our favorite phrases, if I can spit it out. All right. Well, this has been a really great conversation. You mentioned a lot of links, and we'll make sure that we get those all in the description notes for people to connect to you and to connect to some of the other sites that you've mentioned. Thank you for your time today. This has been fun. I know you will say, get healthy or get dead. We just like to say age well here. Either way, get healthy or get dead, and keep aging well.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it too.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening. Hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well.